Hey guys, Peruls here, and today I'm going to be doing something a little out of the ordinary as far as my usual content goes, and I'm starting a new series that, as you can see, is called the Storyteller series. And I've got a few reasons behind wanting to do this, and the primary ones are that I kind of want to let you guys get to know me a little bit better, because a lot of my videos are pretty restricted to, gaming and all my FPS experience and stuff, but I want to switch it up because I think that stories are these things that we just really take for granted, because you can learn so much from them, and I'm constantly asking to hear people's stories and stuff because I just think it's so crazy how different our perspectives of the world are when we've just been through such different shit. And I mean, just like, if you talk to even just a brother or sister of yours, even though you've grown up with them, I mean, there's probably a ton that you just don't even know about them. So, I don't know, I think that's kind of a cool thing about stories, is just, the whole thing of experience. And so that's kind of why I want to share some things with you guys. And today I'm going to be doing something that has played a more significant role in my life than I think I ever gave it credit for in the past. And to give some context for the story, I am 19 years old and I am 100% Hispanic. Both of my parents were born and raised in Uruguay and came here when they were about 20. So as a result, I've been to Uruguay a few times, and I haven't been there in quite a few years actually. I mean, it's kind of a weird thing of me being extremely busy, and it's a rather pricey trip to go on, and it just requires a lot of time. I mean, you pretty much spend an entire day traveling there and getting settled because of all the connections and stuff you generally have to take, but I do plan on going back soon. So this particular story took place when I was probably 11 or 12. I know I was in 6th or 7th grade. I was in the middle of my middle school experience, and I was visiting Uruguay for probably this third time in my life. I remember a lot of this trip pretty vividly. I mean, we were there for, I want to say, at least 3 or 4 weeks. I know I missed some school, even though I had a winter break as well, just because the trip was so long. But yeah, we spent a lot of time there, and on one of our last nights, I went out to dinner with, I believe it was just mostly my mom's side of the family that was there. I'm not sure if any of my dad's side was with us as well, but this was back when my parents were still together, and I don't know, we spent a lot of time with my mom's side of the family whenever we were in Uruguay. So we went out to dinner one night, and it was this kind of local, I want to say like burger slash sandwich kind of place. They have a lot of those over there, and we were going in just, on a casual little dinner because it's one of our last nights there. We ordered our food and all that stuff, and probably about 5 to 10 minutes after ordering our food, we see a group of 4 guys outside of the windows. There's windows kind of going all throughout this restaurant, looking out towards the street and the sidewalk, but it's not an awfully big restaurant or anything. So while we were waiting for our food, we see these guys come in. Just kind of by the look on my parents' face, I could tell this was not a good thing that these guys were coming in. I had my back towards the glass, and they were facing out. So these guys come in, and a few of them have masks that I noticed. A couple of guys just had like their hoods on or whatever. And unfortunately for us, they were equipped with what seemed to be handguns. So within like the first minute, they've got guys all throughout the restaurant making sure no one's making any kind of movements or anything. They begin robbing the register, and a lot of the women were in hysterics, while a lot of the guys were just trying to stay cool and do the typical, well, a couple of them at least, they were trying to talk the guys down, or like kind of figure out, why they were doing this or whatever. And, what these guys obviously didn't listen, and they started getting everyone's money. So I just see a couple of these guys patrolling the room with, their guns to people's head, and then at one point he finally gets to my father, And that's just kind of when I got this feeling that I would rather be in prison than be in this situation. I mean, it was so weird because even though I was only 11 or 12, and I don't know about you guys, but I was pretty fucking stupid at that age. But I mean, I knew exactly what was going on. Like, I was just sitting there, and they didn't tell the kids to put their hands behind their back or anything. So on the table, I was like fiddling with a little bottle cap, and I had so many things just like racing in my mind, and I was just like, holy shit, is this just like where I'm just gonna see my dad die? Like, I really just thought the worst case scenario for pretty much everything. He takes the money from my dad and moves on, and they start doing it to everyone else, and I'd say about 5 or 10 minutes went by before they finally bailed out. And of course, as soon as they leave, everyone's just freaking the fuck out, and I'm still in this kind of like this weird, in a movie when something happens and it's just like a character is thinking, or they're like in slow-mo but everything around them is moving at a normal speed. Like, that was exactly what this felt like, because even though we've the worst has happened, you're still thinking just like my head was literally still in the middle of the robbery, where like shit was still could get worse. And after a couple of minutes, my mom just tries talking to me, and like, I'm not crying or anything. I'm just like, I think, as most of us would probably be, just completely stunned that this would ever happen. Like, well, what the fuck? Like, you never really think a robbery is just gonna happen to you, especially because here in the States, I'm lucky to live in probably one of the safest towns in the country, or I would say just in the entire world in general. So that is not something I would ever expect. Like, I'm not used to this environment where something like that could just happen. So I guess that night was obviously pretty terrible. We went back to the hotel where my parents and brother and I were staying, and my brother, being 6 years older, he was like 16, 17, I think he was a senior in high school, or probably a junior, and he was like freaking the fuck out and like cursing at my parents and shit, like, why the fuck did we come here? Like, this is me. I just kind of like sobbed a little bit and just like still kind of like unsure of what just happened. I went to bed and I was just like super angry, because that was probably the first time in my life that I've ever gotten this experience where I'm just totally powerless. There's absolutely nothing I can do. And so the reason why I even tell the story is because I think it's really important to mark these times of your life where you feel like you've really learned a lot. Because I could have easily tried to just completely forget about it. In fact, I've never actually talked to my parents about the event since we left Uruguay. And I, personally, I wouldn't consider myself traumatized, luckily. But I think the case might be different than my parents, just because they're in a situation where they're not a kid, but instead, they're being held at gunpoint by these like crazy. These guys were tweakers, by the way, which is why they were even robbing the place. They got these guns, and from what I recall, a couple of them were real and a couple of them were not. So, and which ones were which, we don't know, obviously. And the way they got caught was later that night. I guess they got too fucked up and they got a cab to pull over, and they threw the guy out of the trunk or some shit, or sorry, threw him out of the front seat into the trunk, and they drove off and crashed, and then that's how they were discovered. But anyways, I didn't mean to sidetrack so much there. But I think the reason why it would be traumatizing for my parents is just because of the fact that, well, they have kids to take care of, and they're responsible for keeping my brother and I fed and going to school. So as far as their thought process, I mean, I can't even wrap my head around how much they were just thinking of all of these things and just their life flashing through their heads, right in front of their kids. But I mean, it's stories like this that you can think of in hindsight and be like, holy shit, that really changed. That just completely changes the direction your life can take, because I don't know if the word is humbling, but being in the situation where you really think something so close and important to you is about to be taken away, like that's weird. I don't think everyone gets to experience that for, I would say probably for the better, because I mean there's there's better way to make these kinds of realizations and gather important experiences. But I mean, it is what it is. As much as it sucks that it happened at some point in my life, I think I'll always understand that if I don't make light of it, it'll always kind of haunt me a little bit. But I mean, that's how I deal with my really, fucked up or sad stories, is I really try and talk about them as much as possible, because I can't imagine there being many situations for people where suppressing these stories of these really bad experiences in your life has been helpful. So I mean, one of the things I cope with, and I think I'm really glad I started doing this at a young age, but it's just like I really try and give everything a lot of thought and talk about it with friends and family. And I don't know, I mean, I'm the kind of guy who would love to hear stuff like this, because other people's stories are just like a free way for you to learn about experiences, and I think it's always a good thing to do. So I hope you guys enjoyed me telling the story. I know the next one, or probably the next few I do after this one, are definitely going to be some of the funnier moments that have ever happened in my life, because this one is definitely a bit of a heavier topic, but I don't know, it's probably the best story that I have to tell, and I'm pretty familiar with it at this point, so I think that was a good way to introduce the series. If you guys like the video, it would be really great if you gave it a rating, and let me know in the comments what you think, and maybe some similar experiences or anything like that that you might have had, and I'll see you guys in the next video.